Honored to be here with you. I was telling Jeff that this is a little bit nostalgic for me. I used to work here, not in this building, but worked in Las Vegas and spent time here. It's been a while since we've been back. We left in '99 and have been in Utah since. But it was interesting to hear your discussion earlier. We're all facing the same predicaments, and it's interesting. I was reminded that the difference between a problem and a predicament. I had a colorful example. They said, you know, if you're standing on the ledge of a 300-foot cliff and there's water below you, and you're hanging on the edge of the cliff by your fingernails, and you've got a few friends on the cliff, that's a problem. If you're already 20 feet out off the edge of the cliff, and your friends are still standing on the edge, that's a predicament. And it's interesting to look at where we're at right now, and are we at the point of a problem? Are we at a predicament? And I think some of the discussions that you've had, and we have in our state, and I've been around many of the western states. I just came back from D.C. I was meeting with many of our members of Congress, and you can see in their face that it's a predicament. We have a federal government that just clipped $16 trillion in official debt. The overspending, the annual overspending is $1.5 trillion a year. I mean, just a couple of months ago, the USA Today published an article that said the official overspend is $1.5 trillion. If they did their books the way we do in our counties and our states and our businesses, the actual overspend on all of the liabilities, just the annual overspend, is $5 trillion a year. You've got $3.8 trillion in spending, $2.3 trillion in revenue, and then you're booking the promises made to 10,000 baby boomers a day that are retiring that there's no money there. So, I mean, this is serious. Erskine Bowles was the Clinton White House chief of staff, and Alan Simpson, a former senator from Wyoming. President Obama appointed them as the co-chairs of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission to study what happened in 2008, the meltdown, and what happened and where we go from here.
A lot of us sitting in this room didn't see this last crisis as it came upon us. But this one is really easy to see. The fiscal path we are on today is simply not sustainable. This debt and these deficits that we are incurring on an annual basis are like a cancer, and they are truly going to destroy this country from within unless we have the common sense to do something about it. This is a problem we're going to have to face up to in maybe 2 years, you know, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But if our bankers over there in Asia begin to believe that we're not going to be solid on our debt, that we're not going to be able to meet our obligations, just stop and think for a minute what happens if they just stop buying our debt. What happens to interest rates? And what happens to the U.S. economy? The markets will absolutely devastate us if we don't step up to this problem. The problem is real, the solutions are painful, and we have to act.
What I tell people is very simple, and people in America are way ahead of all of you. They know what's going on, because when you say, why don't you go back and think of what people are doing at their kitchen table? I'll tell you what they're doing at their kitchen table. They know that if you spend more than you earn, you lose your butt. And they know that if you spend $1 and borrow 40 cents of it, you must be stupid. And they've got it figured out that this government is stupid. To borrow 40 cents for every buck you spend, forget the charts, forget the GDP, all the rest of it. That's where we are.
I think we face the most predictable economic crisis in history. Let me just tell you how crazy our situation is today. We have this treaty where we're supposed, if China were to attack Taiwan, we're supposed to support Taiwan. The only problem is we'd have to borrow the money from China in order to do it. You know, this is a real mess we're in today. And we can either take the ostrich fury and put our heads in the sand, or we can decide we're going to step up and do something about it. But I can tell you, bankers aren't going to continue to finance something that they aren't sure they're going to get paid back. And the less sure they are, the more they're going to charge you at first, and then they're going to cut you off. And we're borrowing half of our money from foreign countries.
I was just with Congressman Jim Jordan on Friday, and he just said, I mean, you could see it in his face. He just said, if you're not frightened right now, there's something wrong with you. This is tremendously serious. I mean, 75% of the overspend last year. China's not buying our debt anymore. They're net selling. Japan can't. They're net selling. Those were our two biggest creditors. Right now, the way we're making up that deficit spend is the Federal Reserve is simply printing money. They call it Operation Twist and quantitative easing.